Hello and welcome back to Tin Star. Now, before we actually get started, there's one thing I need to mention to you, which is I got a new desk. Now, that in and of itself is not very important to you, I guess. But the thing is, because I got a new desk, I also had to change the position of my microphone. So, while previously it was kind of like hanging down from the side, I've now had to change it so that it's actually coming from my front. Which meant that I also had to change it slightly in its orientation. So basically it's now, it's still in front of me, but it's now below me instead of above me. So that might change my audio a bit. We'll see whether you can actually notice a difference or whether I can even notice a difference. But just in case you do, that is why. All right, with that out of the way, let's go. The pillar of smoke is a dark stripe that rises into the otherwise blue northern sky. All around the nearly empty little town, those few who remain just shake their head at the rising smudge and get back to work, cleaning up. It's probably just a wildfire, but the townsfolk always expect me to do something about these things. Yeah, this could be an opportunity for me. If not, I might be able to make one happen. Law and order slightly decreased. Your horse is in your stable, right where you left it. Good. Where'd Dan go? It doesn't take long for you to find Dan in the general store chatting up Matthew in the sad quiet that the place has become. Dan looked to him and he to me, and we both started running, Dan says as he spins the end of a tail. Fast as you can, because we both know that while we might not be able to outrun the alligator, we have only got to outrun each other. Matthew barely stifles an amused snort at that and then glances your way as you walk in. Is any of that true, Marshal? Well, most alligators are really just sprinters, and besides, they stay in the water when they can. I didn't know that, Matthew notes. It's a pity alligators don't come up here. We'd have a better chance of seeing a lion. I wouldn't mind seeing one of those, Dan puts in. Savannah lions are one of the few beasts I haven't brushed up against. Matthew stares at Schmidt for a moment in disbelief. Schmidt glances your way. So what brings you by, Calamity? Never mind, no. That smoke in the north? It needs investigating, and I'd like you to come along. Well, of course I'll ride with you, Dan says. What are friends for? He gives a parting wave to Matthew, then heads on out beside you. I better get as many people lined up as I possibly can. Go find Miss Carroway and ask her to come along. A glance in the saloons finds Miss Carroway sitting on a game of faro. A sizable pile of gold dust and nuggets rests before her. Well, look who it is, she notes as she flashes you a smile. And I know that look. Give me a moment here and we'll talk. 2 turns of the cards later, she walks away a wealthy woman. Mind giving some of that to me? I could use it. There's a column of smoke in the north that I need to investigate, and I'd like you to ride along with me. As if you have to ask, she says. Miss Carroway shifts her pistols idly. You know, I'd better get my shotgun and my rifle. Plenty of powder, of course, and a spare knife or 2 wouldn't hurt neither. All that and more. Wait patiently for her to assemble her arsenal. 1 shotgun, a rifle, plenty of powder, and 2 knives later, the 2 of you are headed for the door. Right on out. With Dan in the lead and Miss Carroway riding beside, you head on out. We don't really need to owe anything to Preston. That wouldn't be very good, and I also don't really trust that I can work together with any of Preston's deputies very well. The pillar of smoke has ceased to rise by the next day, but a grey pall hangs in the sky afterwards and only slowly drifts away. Near towards sunset, the dust from a band of riders kicks up in the distance. Half a dozen, maybe 2 more if they're on small horses, Dan notes. Those grow closer and closer. Their dark coats and starched white shirts are easy to pick out. Moments, Dan says at last. He squints hard, all but hiding his eyes. You've been out in the sun too long, Miss Carroway notes. Maybe you need some spectacles. I do not. Dan protests a little too much. The Saints rein in, and you note that their leader is Bishop Hancock. Oh no, not that guy again. The man is just as he had been before, but with dark smudges under his eyes. Indeed, they all have a burnt look about them, and not from the sun. Marshal, Bishop Hancock says formally, we have come down to ask for your aid in dealing with a series of terrible events. Men are dead, women are widowed, and whole families have lost their livelihoods. Yep, never boring. Miss Carraway notes under her breath. Tell me what happened. It began at the Smith homestead. They were clearing the fields of corn stalks to feed their pigs when a band of Indians came riding with rifles in hand. Smith's son was killed outright, but he and the others made it to a barn. The Indians flung a torch into the barn and flushed them out. The elder Smith died, trying to fling a pitchfork into one of the bastards, but the others escaped when the wives and daughters began firing from the windows of the house. But it doesn't end there, does it? The Indians moved on, fired a few more shots at other farmhouses. Smith's surviving sons organized a posse to go after them, caught up to them near the Kirk's fields. Mr. Kirk hadn't yet brought in his hay, and the fire got started. I don't know if those Indians meant to do it, but that doesn't matter. The first raged out of control and swept through the whole west side. Whole farms went up before the rains came east and drowned it. Hancock says and looks you straight in the eye. We want those raiders tracked down and dealt with before they do this again. Smiths are certainly were Indians. That's what they said, and I believe them, Hancock tells you. How many are dead in all? Just the 2 from the start, but even 1 should be sufficient for vengeance, Bishop Hancock notes. What tribe were they from? A good question, Bishop Hancock considers. We don't know. I doubt it would be the Shoshone unless they were Bannocks, but it could be Arapaho, Navajo, or even the Cheyenne. Do you have a posse after them now? A band of men are following their trail even now, Bishop Hancock says. You came riding to me for help. We are farmers and folk, Marshal, Bishop Hancock says and removes his serious black hat. We can pull a trigger, but to be honest, we are not very good at fighting. Dedicated, yes, but not bloodied. You, on the other hand, are a marshal, and that presupposes a certain understanding of firearms. In my case, it does. Well, I think I know what I need to do. Go on, Hancock prods. Yeah, I'll need to see the site of the first attack. I don't know what you'll find there, Bishop Hancock says, but I agree that this isn't like anything that happened before. Ashes and graves. They meet there upon the flatlands beside a trickle of a stream. A grey dust covers the brown earth and the 2 bodies buried underneath. Beloved husband, beloved son. Simple words written up to the white crosses. A testament to those who have perished and those who yet endure. There is nothing to be done for the dead, but the living are another matter. You cast your eyes out across a muddy field toward the blackened and skeletal remnants of a barn. Inspect the remaining timbers. The remaining wooden timbers are cracked and old, very dry. Add that to however much hay lay inside, a great deal judging by the many scraps that still remain. Well, it must have lit up like a bonfire. Once that happened, the men inside, 5 or so, would not have had long before they would have to escape or succumb to the smoke and then the blaze. As you turn away, something catches your eye. All but buried in dried mud lies a rounded stick that has been badly blackened on one end. A torch, the very thing that had been used to start a fire. We'll definitely recover that. It's important evidence. You pry the shaft from the mud and note a waxy residue at one end where the dirt does not cling. A sniff fails to stir an odor. Not lamp oil then, but paraffin. The kind of thing that is impossible to find in the wild. It is a nice piece of oak, rubbed smooth and capped by copper. Strange that the Indians would have something like this, let alone use it here where a strip of cloth soaked in oil around a branch might have done the same thing. Yeah, that's kind of what I suspected when I read the first paragraph there. It sounds more like something maybe that the Indians or a certain group of Indians did, yes, but only because they were hired to do so and supplied with material to do that, such as this torch. Maybe, like my first thought that came into my mind, that maybe Preston hired them to do that. I wouldn't know why, I have no idea. But I can't really think of anyone else at the same time unless we're introduced to a new antagonist, in quotation marks, during this chapter. Though it is quite late in the game, I think, chapter-wise, to introduce someone new. But we'll see. Examine the site of the first murder. Out in the middle of a half-harvested field there lies a portion of too dark earth. A host of boot prints surround a depression where broken stalks are tinged with bleak blood.
Look at this,
Dan says as he glances about the ground.
Not a moccasin print to be seen. If I were an Indian, I'd check on the man I shot, if only to make sure he didn't get back up when I moved on past.
Yes. In that case, maybe not Indians, but people dressed like Indians, except for the moccasin part, just to make it look like an Indian attack. Examine the site of the second murder. Just a dozen steps from the barn lies the remnants of a gruesome fight. A whole patch of the ground is gone dark with blood, especially a portion where it looked to pool. Moccasin prints mingle with those from boots, and a broken shaft from a wood handle lies nearby. Here lies where Brother Gene Smith was murdered, Bishop Hancock intones. He stumbled out of the smoke with pitchfork in hand, hurled it at his foe, but to no avail. They paid him back tenfold, then slit his throat and scalped him while his family watched. Okay, that's a bit brutal. Yeah, the brutality of it is terrifying to consider. It is no wonder that the people of Albion Falls are out for blood. Study the prints in the mud. The boot prints of the settlers are easy to distinguish from the Indian moccasins and readily lay out the truth of who went where, just as the story has been told. Strange thing about the moccasins, though, here and there the edges are turned oddly, almost as if they were ill-fitting. A strange thing to see in a war party. Yeah, this goes back to maybe just impersonators. Study the horse tracks. The horse tracks are many and varied. It takes a little while to survey them all. As expected, there are unshod horses that had come closest to the house. But farther along there are many that bear the iron U-shape, a lot of them. Miss Carraway snorts at the prince. Indians never shoot their horses. Waste of time and money for them. I ain't never even heard of a maverick warband trying that. Yeah, Indians don't shoe their ponies.
Because shoes come off eventually, and when one does, you need a blacksmith to put it back on,
Dan explains.
If you can't do that, you have to remove all the shoes or the horse suffers.
Some Indians were here, but those riders in the back who didn't get close might not have been. I have seen enough for now. Now what, Marshal? Bishop Hancock asks. You want us to gather a big posse, or do you figure we're enough to finish the job? You have a half-dozen Saints riders to call upon. Miss Carraway counts double, Dan should count triple on size alone.
Let's get after them. Let's go.
East of Albion Falls lies a barren, desolate land. Jagged mountains rise up to present rugged ridges cropped by a scraggle of trees and brush. The ground has begun to dry, and with it comes a choking, acrid dust. That night your little group hunkers down without warming fires for lack of wood and sleeps fitfully until dawn. A dry repast of jerky, cold beans, and lukewarm coffee, heated atop a fire that consumes a few bits of dry timber to be found, is gulped down before the ride resumes. In the foothills of the Humboldt Ridge, a gleam of a mirror greets your eyes. It pulses once, twice, and then a third time, there up on a thorny slope. A band of men in trail coats with just a hint of white beneath. Our scouts, Bishop Hancock explains, but I would have fought them further along. A quick ride-up finds a weary and bloodied band of white-shirted saints sheltering near the crest of a rise. Not a horse is in sight, but several corpses certainly are. One fella comes on down to greet you, a big fella with dark curly hair that almost makes for ringlets.
Bishop,
the man calls out. Brother Travis, what fresh disaster is this? Bishop Hancock asks.
We found them raiders,
Travis replies and then looks up to you.
Who's this?
Bishop Hancock gestures over. I'd like you to meet the Marshal. Marshal Smith, this is Travis Speaks, our foremost scout.
Hey, Marshal,
Travis says to you.
I can tell you want to get right to this, so here's what happened. They saw us following them and laid an ambush. They got one of us in the first volley. The second one he tried to tend the dying man. We traded shots for almost an hour when they suddenly up and left after we hauled one of them.
Travis gestures to one of the bodies that hasn't been covered up. An Indian for certain. Yeah, I'd like to see that body.
You're welcome to take a look, Travis shrugs. But the bastard's been above ground for a bit, so he's kind of ripe.
Travis removes the blanket to reveal a corpse that had not gone quietly. Dark spots are splashed across torn legs and broken arms from where it fell down the ridge. The chest is dotted with black burn marks and a great deal of blood soaked into the leather shirt. But the head is far worse, for the entire scalp has been removed to reveal a white skull beneath. You Scalped him.
Well, fair is fair, Travis notes. They scalped poor Mr. Smith, didn't they?
Bishop Hancock steps forward and seizes Travis by the arm.
Brother, we do not descend into barbarity. We restrain ourselves from the violence that merely makes us feel good. It's not about feeling good, it's about justice, balancing the scales and all.
Travis counters and tries to shake the older man off.
Brother Travis, justice in this world is the law tempered with compassion.
Bishop Hancock explains in the tones of a father to a wayward son.
When this man died, he paid for his crimes in full. All you did was mutilate a corpse like a mad butcher.
The bishop guides Travis away and leaves you alone with the corpse. Inspect the dead Indian's clothing. The corpse's clothing is ripped and torn, largely by the fall, not to mention the blood from the chest wound, but it is the belt that draws your eye, or rather the lack of one. The breeches don't fit at all, and a quick question confirms that none of the scouts removed the belt. No man wanders around the wilderness with his trousers about to fall off, and definitely not when he is part of a band of raiders. The shirt is interesting as well, for it shows signs of powder burns. Furthermore, bits of black lead that flew out of a bullet and lodged themselves into leather and skin. That only happens with a close shot, practically point blank, but to hear the saints tell it, they never got close. Let's inspect the corpse. It takes only a glance to find where the corpse's wrist were shaved. By leather straps or rope, you'd expect. That's a strange thing to see, certainly. Add in the excessive bruising on the legs, and you've got lots of questions as to what happened in the days before this man got shot. Let's examine the bullet wound. The wound is a deep one that probably goes right through the heart. Strange to get that kind of penetration at such a long range. Strange and troubling. Let's look closer. The edges of the scalping are crisp and clean. A sharp knife cut the flesh to reveal a bone-white skull beneath. Some scraping along the top, though. Travis was not accustomed to this sort of work. Bishop Hancock, I think we need to... let's say I think I know what happened here.
You do?
Bishop asks and steps close.
I mean, beyond the ambush, murder, and horse thievery?
We can go for either this Indian was shot at close range, if what your scouts said is true, then one of the Indians did it. No belt and badly fitting breeches means he may not have been a raider. Also true. The body didn't just get bruised from the fall, something else happened to him before the shootout. Yes. Given the state of the clothing and the body, the Indian was taken captive elsewhere and marched a long way to this place. Yeah. I think we're just going to say everything, aren't we? The condition of the body and the gunshot. I say the raiders dragged this man a long way to execute him. Yeah, let's start with this.
I don't understand,
Bishop Hancock says after a long moment.
Why?
I can only tell you what I found on the body.
So, what does that mean for a pursuit of the raiders?
We must pursue them.
Indeed,
Bishop Hancock says with a nod.
Though there are many questions, they have answers.
The bishop sets about discussing things with the mentalist scouts. Some of those will be riding double with lighter men. As they set to work, a wind blows and the breeze tugs at the Indian's mangled corpse. Take it with us. It takes a little while to construct a litter for carrying the dead Indian. More than a few gripes are muttered in your direction at bothering at all, but soon enough things are ready and you ride on with the little party behind you. The tracks of the raiders proves easy to follow despite the days that have elapsed.
The hoofprints you follow are deep with a good churn of mud behind.
The raiders left at a trot and made good time. You and Dan agree on that. Dusk comes on as you clear another ridge and the coming night forces a halt. The horses are plenty tired and you could all do with some rest. Dan gently flicks flint and steel above a little pyramid of tinder, then breathes into a flickering flame until it turns into a fire.
I've got some worries about all this,
Dan admits as he flicks flint and steel above a little pyramid of tinder, then breathes into a flickering flame. Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, and that ain't the half of it,
Dan says.
I don't know what tribe that fellow was from, and I expect no one else cares much either. For most, Indian is Indian, and that means some poor bastard is going to get shot because of what someone else did.
Dan returns to stoking the burgeoning flames and leaves you with that terrible thought. Miss Carroway motions you over. From her saddleback she sneaks out a bit of jerky and gives it a chew.
I've been thinking.
About? Indians, she says. That dead Indian, the ones that are still alive. You know something, don't you? No, but my father might. He went off to Oregon, and, well, we're kind of headed that way now, Miss Carroway says as she glances off toward the horizon. We could ask if he's heard anything. If you let me take the lead, I know he'll be willing to talk to you. As the discussion with Miss Carroway ends, everyone begins to bed down for the night. Sure, let's talk to Travis about it. Look, Travis begins to say after a long moment passes. The Indian got shot and rolled down the mountain. That were our work, and we were proud of it because he was one of those bastards that killed Grady Smith and his son. The Indian deserved all that and more. Do you understand the potential ramifications regarding local Indian relations? The law says that the desecration of the body is a crime, unless you are a doctor performing professionally or an undertaker. I get the law, Travis agrees, and I suppose I'm sorry for the scalping. I hope that's enough for you. Oh, you apologized for the scalping. Yes, okay. He steps over to the litter that carries the corpse, then tosses the scalp onto it and walks away. Morning comes, and with it a layer of frost, the kind you'd been expecting to see for a few days now. The land is transformed in the rising sun, the once brown valley now striped with white where the frost has settled during the night. A vast zebra sprawl where it had been a mere brown steed before. Breakfast comes slow, what with the wood gone wet, but soon enough a fire is burning and bacon frying for the whole group. What is that? Bishop Hancock asks as he peers off to the north and west. The warm biscuit in his hands might as well be a lump of stone. Is it a cattle drive? A glance that direction finds dark dots moving down the far ridge. Bishop Hancock pulls out the scope from his pack and peers through one end. He passes the optic over to you and gives a worried frown. Through the lens, the dots immediately become riders. Lots of riders, 40 and more at least, with rifles and bows aplenty. Indians. A whole war band of Indians. Are they the raiders? Bishop Hancock wonders even as the saints take up their rifles. Yeah, these are not the Indians you are looking for. Do we flee? Can we fight? Bishop Hancock asks. Looking after the well-being of the ward is one thing. This is something else altogether. Dan steps forward and shades his eyes ever so slightly. They look like peyote. You're just saying that because they're riding out of the northwest? Miss Carroway says and all but rolls her eyes. Bishop Hancock glances back east. We're a long way from Albion Falls, but if we can get there, we'll have plenty of rifles on our side. Parley with them before things get out of hand. Can you parley with Indian war bands? Is that a thing? What are our stats? Negotiation? Survival? Persuasion and intimidation isn't bad. You know what? Sure. Let's give it a try. The Indians send 3 of their number ahead. All are tall atop their steeds as if on parade. The foremost of them sets a splay of feathers into his hair, his sun-touched features tight beneath the blue sky. They halt just beyond easy pistol range. The feathered Indian lets the still quiet of the wintry land carry his words in a tight-clipped accent. I am many rocks fall. Of those who live in snow, we are yet strangers to one another. He's of Peyote tribe, Dan notes, from the heights of Oregon country. I am the marshal of this country, a county, Calamity Smith. Yes, I see your tin star, and it is good that we meet, for there has been a terrible wrong committed upon my tribe, Many Rocks Fall explains. But I cannot trust anyone solely because of what is worn. Let him speak. My son has been taken captive and... Oh. Well, this is great. Should have buried him, shouldn't we? Many Falling Rock says and pauses to draw in a steady breath. My braves have seen several bodies upon the ridge. Is he one of them? Silently wait. Your son died during a fight with Latter-day Saints. Well, you know what? I need to hear your story first. Very well, Many Falling Rocks says simply. I am of those who live in snow, many days' ride toward the cold rivers. My son has been taken from me, made captive over a week past. I hope he yet lives, but my heart tells me otherwise.
If he dreams the endless dream, then I am here to slay those who held the sleeping spear, or else fall from waking myself. You'll lay out the things you know about what happened. The raids on Albion Falls farms, the fact that about half the raiders' horses were shod, the use of paraffin torches to burn down the smith's barn. I hear the echoes of truth, Many Falling Rocks admits. What of my son? You took him with you.
Yeah, judging from the powder burns, he was shot at close range. No scout got that close, which means one of the raiders did this.
I understand, Many Falling Rocks says with a sigh. And it is easy enough to see that he died by a pistol and not a far-off rifle.
Yeah, the body had many strange bruises. Some were half-healed.
He was taken captive over a week ago. Enough time for that to happen,
Many Falling Rocks considers. Yeah, he was not wearing clothes for a raid, and the marks on his moccasins say he walked rather than rode.
They marched him a long way, only to...
Many Falling Rocks tries to say, but falters and falls silent. I think you know what happened.
Yes, someone wishes to trick me into bringing my axe against the stiff collars,
Many Falling Rocks says, then glances at the saints.
And they very nearly succeeded.
He turns and shouts something to the warband. The Indians case their rifles and unstring their bows. The saints do the same when Bishop Hancock turns and gestures with a hand over heart.
This is a difficult thing for me to do,
Many Falling Rocks says as he slips from the saddle and stretches his legs.
My son is lost, and there is nothing I can do to those who slew and scalped him.
Actually, Travis here, I mean, there's no need. There really is no need. We can imprison him on our own if we want to. Guess not. With all that concluded, the Indians gather their horses and prepare to ride off. The saints are certainly glad to see them go. Many Falling Rocks lingers for a while beside the litter bearing his son's body.
I will continue to look for those who slew my son,
Many Falling Rocks says,
but I shall not do so among the white shirts.
I understand.
I am glad of that. From this moment on I gather my strength and look to the day that I shall spill the blood of the guilty, he says with a chill promise. Farewell, Marshal Smith.
Having talked sense to Many Falling Rocks, you approach Bishop Hancock as he stares out west. The setting sun is engulfed in distant brooding clouds.
Snow, a lot of it coming on down,
Bishop Hancock states with certainty.
Yep,
Dan agrees.
I can feel it in my toes. We're in for a dusting.